Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Wellbe podcast. This podcast is designed to help you learn, expand what you thought was possible, and become as empowered as you can be in your health. Today's episode is an in-depth guide to water. Not hydration, though that could be its own episode and might be in the future. But today I'm sharing lots about water filters and what's actually in tap water, as well as what's in bottled water and the best and worst brands. Before we jump in, it's October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we now know a tremendous amount about how to prevent breast cancer. One of the main risk factors is exposure to endocrine or hormone-disrupting chemicals and synthetic hormones through our products, food, water, and air. The Wellbe Spark Health program was designed specifically to take you through a 6-week or 6-module process. You can do it in longer or shorter than 6 weeks to detoxify your home and daily habits. Included in the program is a year of access to our notable non-toxic product database, valued at $97. It's a pretty good deal if I say so myself. To bring awareness to the connection between cancer prevention and hormone-disrupting chemicals, we are running a 33% off sale or $100 off the program in the month of October. You can head to getwellbe.com to find the program and use code OCTOBERSALE to get in on this great deal. All right, now let's jump in. You probably know that the wisest choice for your health and the environment is to drink from a reusable water bottle filled with filtered water, which I'll get much more into later in this episode. But there are times when you just need to buy a bottle of water. This might seem simple, but choosing the best bottled water to drink is actually a bit complicated. As it turns out, there are a lot of different kinds of water, from mineral water to triple distilled to reverse osmosis and much more. There are also countless bottled water brands. First, let's break down the 3 basic choices you have when it comes to drinking water. There's straight from the tap, there's filtered from the tap, or purchased in a bottle. While bottled water may offer you more glamorous sounding choices and make you feel more in control of the quality of the water you're drinking, it has some serious drawbacks. First off, it contributes to the major environmental problem of plastic waste, which is actually a health problem as well. Plus, you're likely ingesting microplastics if it's in any sort of soft plastic bottle, and that is most water bottles, and there's very little regulation about what goes into bottled water, so you don't really know what you're drinking. A 2018 study of 259 plastic bottled water brands showed 90% had microplastics in the water. The lowest or best levels were in San Pellegrino at 74 per liter in the most contaminated San Pellegrino bottle tested, followed by Evian at 256, so that's a big jump. Another 2018 study that tested 19 bottled water brands for microplastics found that boxed water, Fiji, Ozarka, and Evian had the highest levels of contamination. How could Evian be on the better end in one study and the worst end in another? The level of microplastics differs from bottle to bottle, not just brand to brand. Tap water, on the other hand, allows you to avoid plastic and help out the planet by using glass or a reusable water bottle. The drawback, of course, is that tap water will always have certain contaminants, which vary depending on where you live. Our favorite happy medium is to fill our reusable bottles with tap water that we filtered using the best filter for the contaminants in our water supply, which again, I'll get much more into later in this episode. If you're buying bottled water, and we get it, I do, sometimes you're dying of thirst or you forget your water bottle at home and you're in the airport boarding a plane, you have a lot of different options to choose from. Just look at all the bottled water in the cold cases at a deli or local grocery store, and you'll see an abundance of different varieties, from alkaline water to triple distilled to reverse osmosis and beyond. But what do all these terms mean, and do they matter for your health? A lot of the terminology on those bottles sounds pretty fancy and high-tech, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to most of us. And the truth is, while some of those terms really do have significance when it comes to your health, many of them are pretty much just marketing, which makes it all the more complicated. I'm not a loyalist to any one bottled water company, but by understanding the words on the labels, you can easily select the best bottled water for your health. Here's a breakdown of common terms you'll see for different kinds of water and what each mean so that you can choose the healthiest bottled water next time you're in a pinch. First, there's distilled water. Distilled water is water that's been boiled into a vapor and then condensed back down into liquid to remove impurities. Distilled water can be a good choice in areas where the tap water contains impurities. However, the distillation process removes any potentially beneficial minerals from the water, which is a big reason you're drinking water to begin with. And there's concern that distilled water could leach trace amounts of minerals from your body, meaning taking out minerals. Therefore, distilled water wouldn't be our first choice for everyday drinking water. It's really more for things like a baby bottled water, for example, or a humidifier. Then there's mineral water. Mineral water refers to any water sourced from a mineral spring. According to the FDA, which regulates bottled water, mineral water must contain at least 250 parts per million of total dissolved solids that originate from a geologically and physically protected underground water source. Mineral water can contain minerals including magnesium, calcium, sodium, and zinc, among others, and has been shown to have significant health benefits. A drawback of mineral water is that it can have a high sodium content, which could be a concern for somebody with high blood pressure, but generally, this is pretty healthy water. Then we've got alkaline water. This is water that has had nutrients added to it to achieve a higher pH, making it less acidic than other water. A lot of claims have been made about the potential benefits of alkaline water, including that it can neutralize acid in your bloodstream, slow bone loss, and expel toxins more efficiently. Some even argue that it can protect against heart disease or cancer. There have been studies showing that alkaline water can improve bone strength, reduce acid reflux, and lower blood pressure, but all of these were small studies that can't necessarily lead to firm conclusions, so more research is needed here. On the negative side, tipping your body's balance too far to the alkaline side could mess with the natural acidity of your stomach. Remember, stomach acid helps break down food, which you want. All in all, it's really hard to say because also plastic leaches out alkalinity. So sometimes the pH level on a brand of alkaline water saying 9, by the time you drink it, depending on how long it's been in the bottle, how long that bottle was on the shelf, etc., it could be further down. So it's a little bit of marketing, a little bit of possible truth in the health benefits, but I wouldn't put too much stock in it. Then you have electrolyte water. This is basically a subcategory of mineral water since electrolytes are minerals that conduct electricity when dissolved in water. Electrolytes are usually associated with sports drinks like Gatorade because they help with a number of functions associated with athletic recovery. They rebalance your fluids and help your muscles contract. To tap into the benefits of electrolytes, some bottled water brands will add in electrolytes like potassium and magnesium. While these can certainly be beneficial, the fact is that unless you're drinking distilled water, which is no minerals, your water already has electrolytes in it. This term is definitely more marketing than anything else, but don't forget that electrolytes are important and they can't be seen as a totally bad thing. So if you feel like you want to add extra electrolytes into your water in whatever way that means, sure, knock yourself out, but don't feel like you have to do it all the time. Next, you have reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis, like distillation, refers to a filtration process used to remove impurities from tap water. In this process, untreated water flows through a semi-permeable membrane, which traps things like salt, chemicals, minerals, and impurities. Just like distilled water, reverse osmosis water offers a healthier alternative to people who live in areas with contaminated tap water. But it also strips out healthy minerals that could be beneficial to your health. In fact, the World Health Organization released a statement over their concerns about people drinking demineralized water. The best kinds of reverse osmosis systems put the minerals back in the water after they remove everything, generally called a remineralizer. But these systems are usually quite pricey. Next, you have spring water. As defined by the FDA, it's derived from an underground formation from which water flows naturally to the surface of the earth at an identified location. It may be collected at the spring or through a borehole, tapping the underground formation that feeds the spring. Spring water, like mineral water, goes through very similar distillation to return naturally occurring minerals. In fact, spring water is very similar to mineral water, except that mineral water, as the name suggests, contains more minerals. Spring water doesn't need to contain a minimum amount of minerals. It just needs to be related to a spring. Despite the FDA definition, be warned that the term spring water doesn't necessarily mean the water is pure and clean. Because so many springs are now very contaminated, many items marketed as spring water contain contaminants you probably not want to drink. In fact, Poland Spring's parent company, Nestle Water, is facing a class action lawsuit against it, claiming that they falsely marketed groundwater as spring water. As of February 2022, Bloomberg claims that Nestle must keep defending most claims in a false ad suit over Poland Spring bottled water after a federal court in Connecticut denied much of its motion to shorten the window of liability for the case. Next, you have sparkling water. This is a simple water that's been carbonated, making it bubbly. It's become quite trendy in the past 5 or so years, becoming the #1 purchased beverage in the country. The quality and health risks of any specific sparkling water will depend on the source of the water itself, but there's one potential risk that everyone who enjoys bubbly water should keep in mind: PFAS chemicals. A 2020 study from Consumer Reports found that most of the top sparkling water brands contained detectable levels of PFAS, which had been linked to various chronic health issues, including low birth weight in babies, hormone disruption, and cancer. Topo Chico, one of the trendiest sparkling bottled water brands, had the highest levels of PFAS, with Polar, Bubbly, and Poland Springs close behind. Meanwhile, only 2 still water brands had detectable levels of PFAS. My favorite sparkling water, which I drink maybe every few weeks with a splash of fresh lime juice in place of a cocktail or as a cocktail with a bit of tequila or mezcal, is San Pellegrino, but in a glass bottle only. I'll also drink Mountain Valley Spring, still water or sparkling water, also in a glass bottle. And then when I'm in an airport or on the go and have no water with me and simply need to buy a plastic bottle of water, I'll drink Evian, Volvic, or Fiji. And yes, I mentioned that Fiji and Evian had microplastics in the test that was done, but I find those bottles of water to be the highest mineral count and therefore really the most bang for my buck. And I so rarely drink plastic that I'm not concerned I'm having high levels of microplastics in my body. Most of the time, I'm drinking filtered water. A good water filter is one of the most important tools for both preventing and healing chronic health issues. But there's a lot of confusing information out there about which is the best water filter for you, not to mention the huge differences in cost and whether or not to drink bottled water, and when you do, what kinds are best. So let's get started. In 2017, the Environmental Working Group, or EWG, began publishing its database of pollutants found in American tap water, using data from 32 million state water records. The database reveals some pretty frightening stuff about the contaminants found in tap water across the U.S., and should motivate all of us to get a hold of the best water filter possible. Of course, there are many types, and as EWG data shows, the best home water filters will be different depending on where you live. All these variables can make finding the right water filter very confusing, and confusion tends to breed paralysis, and that's not good for making health changes. Since our goal is to help you make these small changes that have a huge impact on your short and long-term health, we took the incredible trove of data from EWG and used it to do our own research and create a handy guide for finding the best water filter for your area. See, while the tap water database includes a very useful tool for looking up what's in your city's water supply, it makes it very hard to figure out what kind of filters then work to take care of the particular set of contaminants in your water. That's where getwellbe comes in. We look through the EWG's water filter guide to find products that are certified to filter out contaminants found in 5 major cities: Boston, Chicago, LA, New York, and San Francisco. If you're in any of these metropolitan areas, this guide will help you make an informed choice about the best water filter. If you're not in one of those metropolitan areas, you can look up your zip code in the EWG database, which you'll find on the written version of the guide, to find out which contaminants are in your water, and then take a look at the water filter options laid out in our guide to see which filters out the relevant toxins. It might be that where you live also has similar toxins to one of these metropolitan areas we identified, and you could just buy one of the filters that we put on there. To make our recommendations, we looked at each city's results for contaminants detected above health guidelines. Note that there was quite a bit of overlap between the 5 cities, which should tell you something about city water more generally. The biggest differences in contaminants are generally going to come between city and suburb and country or rural water. That's because they'll use a lot more agricultural chemicals in rural areas than they would in city areas. Then we cross-referenced the EWG water filter guide to see which NSF, or National Sanitation Foundation International, or Water Quality Association, lots and lots of acronyms, certified filters were certified for the contaminants. And then as a final step, we looked at reviews for these filters to find the best options. You'll find these recommendations on the written version of the episode on getwellbe.com, which I talked about. But if you're wondering what kind of contaminants are in tap water, the NRDC, or the National Resource Defense Council, reports that nearly 77 million Americans, almost a quarter of the population, drink water from systems that don't meet federal standards. And the EPA has identified more than 80 contaminants that can occur in drinking water and pose a health risk to humans. The EWG report found a lot of different contaminants in different water sources, too many to name here. So I'll just give you the rundown on some of the major ones and why they could be dangerous to your health. First, you have TTHMs, or total tree halomethanes. There's a lot of crazy words when it comes to contaminants, so you'll have to forgive me for all of my mistakes. Anyway, TTTMs is a group of chemicals that include chloroform, bromoform, and two others with names I won't even try to pronounce. These carcinogens form during water treatment with chlorine and other disinfectants. According to EWG, there may be a link between disinfection byproducts and cancer, as well as a link to an increased risk of problems during pregnancy, including spontaneous miscarriage, cardiovascular defects, neural tube defects, and low birth weight. You can find these in LA, New York, Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. Next, you have chromium, or hexavalent. This carcinogen, made famous in the movie Erin Brockovich, may come from industrial pollutants or natural occurrences in mineral deposits and groundwater. It's been found in more than 75% of American water systems that supply more than 66% of the whole country. You can find them in LA, New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. Next, we have arsenic. This naturally occurring mineral causes bladder, lung, and skin cancer and can damage skin and lungs. It gets into drinking water from natural, industrial, and agricultural sources and occurs at the highest level in the western states. You can find it in Los Angeles. 3 contaminants I just mentioned are the biggies, but the list doesn't stop there. Here are a few other contaminants EWG found in the 5 major cities that I just mentioned and where they can be found. So bromate, linked to cancer, found in LA. Chlorate, linked to hormone disruption, found in San Francisco. Hormones, including estrogen and testosterone. Remember that synthetic sex hormones can make their way into the water supply via birth control pills, via livestock waste, or even water treatment byproducts, where they can then cause hormonal imbalance. This is found in Chicago. Next, you have radiological contaminants, which are linked to cancer, found in Boston, also in Chicago, and in LA. Next, we have trichloroacidic acid, linked to cancer and harming fetal growth and development. These were found in Chicago and New York. You may be freaked out about hearing all of those, but fortunately, you only have to worry about the contaminants in your specific water system. The first step in choosing the best home water filter is to zero in on which contaminants are there. The second step to choosing the best water filter for you is to figure out what type of filter you want. To make this decision, you'll want to think about things like the layout of your kitchen or bathroom and the ways that you and your family drink and use water. Here are the most common types. First, you have a faucet mount. This type makes it easy to safely use tap water. It attaches directly to the faucet and does its filtration there. Next, you have a pitcher filter. This is what most of us have. Think of it as an upgraded version of the Brita filter, which, I'm sorry, is not the best brand of pitcher filter that we all had back in college. Pitcher filters let you filter water from the tap, then keep the ready-to-water drink on your countertop or wherever is most convenient for you. Next, you have the separate tap filter, one of the fancier filter options. This type allows you to install a completely separate faucet in your sink with a robust purification system in place, usually below the sink. Next, we have a shower filter. While you're not drinking water in your shower, you're still inhaling it through steam and absorbing it through your largest organ, which is your skin, which means whatever's in the water will make its way into your bloodstream. Shower filters remove chlorine, which is used as a disinfectant in water nearly everywhere. Chlorine has been linked to higher incidences of bladder, rectal, and breast cancer and can interact with organic compounds in water to create trihalomethanes, which encourage free radical growth in damaged cells. Next, you have a refrigerator filter. Many refrigerators come with built-in water filters, so they can seem like a smart and convenient choice for filtering out water. Unfortunately, they're not as great as they might initially seem. First off, the filtration may not be all that effective. These filters use carbon filtration, which relies on the water being in contact with the carbon for an extended period of time. That just isn't the case with a refrigerator water filter where the water is quickly dispensed. The other big concern is growth of harmful organisms such as mold, yeast, fungus, and bacteria. This could happen from people's fingers or unclean glasses or water bottles touching the filter, which then passes on microbes that breed on the filter, or from airborne microbes produced by spoiled food in the kitchen. Another big reason for refrigerator filter contamination is a failure to change the filter frequently enough. Refrigerator filters are out of sight and easy to forget about. Plus, many don't have indicator lights showing they need to be changed. So a lot of us don't change them when we need to. When this happens, bacteria like E. coli and fecal coliform can begin to grow. One study by the National Sanitation Foundation took swabs from various homes and found that the refrigerator water filter was actually the germiest spot in the house, harboring concerning levels of yeast and mold. No filter eliminates all contaminants, so it's essential to understand what contaminants your filter does eliminate and make sure they're the right ones for your area. It's also essential to read the filtered label or fact sheets to make sure it's NSF certified. If it is, you can search the NSF database to learn more about what that particular model filters out. The final step matters because you should always confirm the manufacturer's claim with a third-party source like NSF who isn't trying to sell you something. A lot of people claim a lot of things when they're trying to sell water filters. On the written guide, you'll find the recommendations that Wellbe's made for what water filter you should purchase based on where you live. To choose these products, we use the info I just mentioned and then sifted through the options on Amazon to pick the ones with a high volume of reviews and the highest percentage of 5-star ratings. We do offer something on getwellbe.com called the Wellbe Concierge Service, where we can do a custom search for you if you don't have time to get into all the nitty-gritty detail like we did. So if you live somewhere besides the 5 cities we researched and want help finding the right water filter for your home, definitely check out the Wellbe Concierge Service on getwellbe.com. To read the written version of this episode with all the research and product links, head to getwellbe.com or check out the link in the show notes. And while you're there, don't forget about the awesome sale we're putting on in October that is over soon for Breast Cancer Awareness Month on the Spark Health program. In this program, you'll go through the process of getting the right water filters for your home. Head to getwellbe.com and use code OCTOBERSALE to get 33% off the program or $100 off and get those dangerous contaminants out of your home, water, and body ASAP. If you haven't already and found this episode helpful or interesting, subscribe to the podcast. This way you'll never miss a new episode and they'll be delivered to you whenever we publish a new one. And please share this episode with family or friends who you think might find it valuable and informative. It means a lot and helps more people find the podcast. And if you love the Wellbe podcast, please leave a quick review. If you already have, then thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is your host, Adrienne Nolan-Smith, and thanks again for listening to the Wellbe podcast.